Scrub cutters, on-site maintenance. This is the maintenance you should be doing when you're using a scrub cutter on site. The idea is to keep your scrub cutter in a condition where it's as efficient as possible so that you can accomplish your assigned tasks in a manner which means you put in as little effort as possible, i.e. you don't have to work hard. So this is confined to maintenance of the cutting heads. If anything seriously has gone wrong with the power head, which is unusual as these don't suffer the same wear and tear as a chainsaw power head because they're basically up and behind the operator, then stick it in the middle unit with a tag, like this one over here, and hang it up on here. And the tags and the pens to write on them live in there. Right, okay. Let's look at metal blades, because we use these type and we use the tri-blades, and we'll look at strimmer heads separately because they're slightly different. So first off, these are the tools you're going to need to maintain in cutting heads. This thing comes from Stihl, it comes with a new machine and you can buy them separately. And this is basically a locking tool on this end. This end here is a T27 Torx wrench. Torx, spelled T-O-R-X. And a combi spanner. The one that comes with the machine often has a Torx wrench on this end, but this one in particular has a flat blade on it. That's the one you're going to need for the nut on the end. Right, so this thing goes through this hole here, like this, and protrudes in here. And that basically goes in one of these 4 holes on this thing, which is the drive plate. That's a new one. That one's a worn one. And this is a serviceable one. See, that one's come off. This is a shim. And this basically stops this tool from coming all the way through. The idea, I'll show you on this one over here, that pops through there, pops that up. If these screws are protruding so that when you put this drive plate on it rubs, there's something wrong with this head. If you find that you've got a lot of oily build-up underneath here, like on this one, then the oil seal on this bearing has gone, so it's time to change the angle gear. Anyway, that protrudes through there, and you spin it. It's easy with 2 hands until it locks. So these are the splines, these are on the spindle. This is the protrusion of the drive plate, and that marries up on a metal blade with this diameter in here. So that's now located. Then this washer, which is basically a very heavy duty spring washer, goes on here and lines up with the splines, and then the nut goes on and squashes it down. And that's what transfers the drive from the main spindle to your cutting blade. The idea is that this is not connected directly to the output shaft. If you hit something and hit it hard, this is free to move. See, that's moving and the spindle isn't. So let's have a look at a new one of these washers. That looks like that. And if we go over here onto this one, and compare the two, you see this one's a lot higher. If you took this one off, it would be the same height. So what's happening here is the tightness, in inverted commas, of this nut squashes this spring washer down, and that's what transfers the drive and allows it to slip under extreme loads. And that's the same with the tri-blade. The strimmer head is different, but we'll come to that in a minute. Now this is a new mulching blade. This is the bit that does the work. You see this edge here, and on this end you've got this angle. This is the bit that does most of the work. Turn it over, you see it's got all the labels and everything on it. That goes on like that. And then with these blades you need a nut guard, which is one of these. This is a new one. This is an old one. It's taken some damage, but it's still usable because it is the same height as a new one. If it gets too low, then your nut, which is this, when it's fully tightened down like this one, is going to be exposed. It's going to take damage, and the end of your shaft is going to potentially take damage, which means you won't be able to take the nut off. Your nut is a nylock nut, has this plastic insert, which together with the spring pressure of the spring washer means that once it's tightened down fully, it won't come off. If you look under here, see there's a relief here, which means that it's not, under any circumstances, hopefully going to interfere with this set of splines. So that goes on there like that. Or nut guard goes on, and then your nut itself goes on backwards. It's usually righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. This is lefty-tighty. The reason for that is it spins that way, and the nut tends to do up as it's a left-hand thread. Get the idea? Right. The guard which goes with this is this one. One of your regular checks every time you stop for fuel is to make sure this guard is not loose like this one is. See this holding down screw here has come off? That needs to be tightened down. And the reason for that coming loose is that this guard limits the contact that this can have with the ground. Basically stops it hitting the ground. It comes close to the ground. It is easy to just bash this onto the ground. You shouldn't be doing that. You should just be patting. So this is falling under its own weight. You're not pushing pressure on it to smash it down. And that basically is the action that allows this to cut into your brambles and mulch. If your blade is becoming blunt like this one, this is just about serviceable, but it's taken damage, then you can see as it wears down, it's going to be further from the ground than if it was nice and new. Temptation then is to hit it harder, which is not the way to go. This one's similarly worn, and it's taken heavy damage on the cutting edge. You see you've got these notches. They can act as stress razors and promote cracking of the blade. It's rare, but it can happen. And I think it's this one is also twisted. You see the angle on here is flat. Hopefully the camera will pick that up. But if I move it along flat onto this end, see the far edge of the blade is pointing upwards. That's basically because it's hit something really hard and it's bent. And you see that this is a lot shorter than this one. So this one is worn out, and this about says it all. Looks like this is worn out. Don't even bother trying to use it. You're just going to be inefficient and you're going to wreck the angle gear. This is an angle gear. These are 136 pounds plus VAT each. And what happens if your nut stays loose, if your holding down screw stays loose, is that it starts to strip the thread. So this means, of course, that you can't do it up. This one's got a thread in it. This is in okay condition. And I have another one somewhere about here where this is stripped out, and that will write this off. Okay, now we go on to the tri-blade. This is the guard to use with the tri-blade. Not this guard, and not a strimmer guard. Same 3 fixing bolts, but the bolts are actually slightly different. I shan't go into that now. This is a tri-blade, and this one, as usually happens, has taken some wear on it. So you can imagine as it's spinning, it's taking all its wear on one side. That spins that way, and that's the worn edge. These are designed to be able to turn over and present a new cutting edge, so you get twice the wear out of it. If it takes damage, hits something really hard, and it bends or twists or loses bits of itself, shouldn't happen but it sometimes does, it's going to be out of balance and you're going to get more vibration. This is marked up because this edge is good. These tri-blades need a rider cup, not a nut guard, and this is basically what limits the distance the tri-blade can get from the ground. This is a new one. This one is showing wear, but you can still see the writing on it, which tells you which way to loosen. So lefty tighty on this one, and this one is showing damage, and it's got thin here, and you see it started to crack. There's a crack running through here by my thumb. This one's worse, and words fail me. You know, this should have been changed long before it got to this stage. Where did the rest of it go? So it starts to show damage like this one. Change it for a little worn one or a new one. There are supplies of these and they are available, just ask. So this goes on. Let's take that off. New tri-blade goes on like that, but between this and that, of course, you need one of these. So that goes on there, that goes on over the top, and you can see that this is recessed, so it clears this, and then your nut goes on. If your nut goes on easily all the way down, see this is stopped about here where it gets onto the nylon, it keeps tightening down and it's easy to do, then you need a new nut, because your nut has got like this. You can see that it's indented the profile of the thread into the nylon bit. And on these blades, this is how it should sit when it's fully tightened down. If it sits like this one, with the nut sticking up, and it's fully tight, that means you haven't mated up your spring washer with your splines. So it's sitting proud and you're going to damage both. So it's sitting like that instead of like that. Right, strimmer heads, slightly different. You still need this tool to lock it. And you still need these two bits. If you leave those off, you can spin that on. It should be able to spin on, that's it. And it will work for about a minute. But what will happen is it'll jam itself down onto this edge here, and you'll need a special tool to remove it, because this isn't now doing anything at all, and you've basically lost a day's work because that's jammed up. So as usual, you need that, the drive plate, and that, the cover plate. Then that spins on and it makes contact with your cover plate and your drive plate. So this thing can't slip under heavy load or heavy impacts. What you do is spin it on, but that should never have a heavy impact, because you're relying on the string to do the cutting. And that needs a different guard, which I should have got earlier, which is one of these. Right, this one's taken damage. Do not use it. This one's missing this thing, which, as you can see here by these bits of string that are left in it, that basically limits the length of the string to the most efficient length. So if you find one like that, don't use it. This one's in good condition, but before you use this thing, you need to clean this crap out by pushing it. And it'll come out quite easily, and your string, which spins this way, will now hit this edge and stay the right length. Right, hope that was helpful and useful. It's quite a long video, but it covers everything you need to know. If you maintain these in the best condition, then your work will be easier and safer. If you fitted the wrong guard and you have an accident, you're liable. Short video on this scrub cutter, which came in today, 4th of April, number 13, for a broken pull start and a missing choke button. But the real issue, the really safety issue, is here. What can you see wrong with this? This looks right, this looks right, but there's something missing here. And the whole thing, if you spin it, you see it's all wobbly, and there's a gap here. So let me show you. Perils of working one-handed. Okay, so as we saw, it's missing apparently its spring washer until we see that. Amazingly, there's no damage because it's been used like that. Look at this thing spinning off center, so the vibrations were huge. And if something had gone wrong, then there would have been inquiries as to safety, because of course it goes on like that with this on top of the blade, because this diameter here is supposed to match up with this, so it can only be concentric.